Okay. All right. Well, we thank everyone today for joining us. We are here for our first LinkedIn Live broadcast. Today, we're going to be doing a demonstration of our supplier management module that works with Aras Innovator. And Milana Bradovic is going to provide that to us and walk us through what that looks like. So today will be our first try with this LinkedIn Live, so be patient with us. We have some more planned. And today should be, shouldn't run any more longer than 30 minutes, probably shorter. But Milana will walk us through the demo, and then we'll take some questions. All right, I'm going to hand it over to Milan.
Alrighty, thanks, Julianne. Yeah, so as Julianne kind of highlighted, we're going to be going over our Razorleaf supplier management module. And without further ado, I don't really have any decks, so let's go ahead and jump into Aras. So the Razorleaf supplier management module is part of our overall manufacturing suite that includes change management module, supplier, obviously, the productivity pack, and our learning management module. But today, obviously, we'll be focusing solely on supplier. So the first thing to note here is notice that we are currently focused on a part item within Aras. That is intentional. The whole point of this is to highlight that our supplier management solution is fully ingrained within PLM. It'll make use of multiple different aspects of Aras, parts and BOMs, quality, and of course our supplier management module. So our scenario here starts with our mountain bike assembly. This assembly is fairly simple. We have a few sub-assemblies and a few components. So note first that the entire assembly is currently released, except for our bike chain here. And that's for good reason. So currently our engineering team is currently deciding which supplier's part to put on this assembly. So currently on the EBOM, we have C661721, but within our alternates tab, we also have an alternate part number with a -2 at the end. So let's go ahead and investigate why this part necessarily is preliminary. So first things first, let's open up our initial chain, our first candidate here, and check out the part record. So really there's not much to focus on here outside of the supplier tab. And we see that this part is supplied by a company known as Advanced Idea Mechanics, or we'll call them AIM for short. If we were to open up that supplier record, we can see that our supplier is currently in the state of under audit. So this means that not necessarily something's wrong with the part, but we're currently auditing the supplier, maybe due to a monthly audit, or maybe an event has occurred. So let's go ahead and check out candidate number 2, which really is just number 2 of this part number, and that is supplied by Stark Industries. And let's go ahead and open up that supplier record. As we scroll through Stark Industries, we see that its status is currently listed as certified. So this supplier is not currently under audit. There's no corrective action plans ongoing. Really is just operating as usual. So to investigate what's going wrong with this part and its supplier, let's go ahead and check out the audit finding record. So one thing to note here is that the audit finding is actually the same item that is found within the quality management solution that is within Aras out of the box. So the reason we tried to do this is to keep things, one, as out of the box as possible to limit implementation costs, but also to kind of keep a sense of commonality amongst the Aras product. So when we go ahead and open up our audit finding record, it's really just the same one that you'll see out of the box. So as we investigate our audit here, we see that it is supplier audit linked to AIM. And the reason for this audit is sadly catastrophic part failure. We see that there's overheating in some of the parts resulting in failure. And then we have an attached document that will allow us to review some of the parts that have failed, passed, things of that nature. So as we go ahead and open this up, one thing to note, you might notice the chain isn't currently on this part list, but we'll pretend it is. I decided to go with something a little more fun for this document, some fun engineering jargon. So we see that out of all of our AIM parts, the only parts that really have passed our test and aren't failing catastrophically are the transitive prelocator arm and our denatured mechanical digitizer. Everything else on this list, including our chain, has been failing overheating and essentially breaking. So obviously when we're building a mountain bike, we'd rather not have a chain that snaps all the time. Probably lead to some injury, crashes, and a lot of bad rep for our bike manufacturing company here. So with this audit, we can also go ahead and take a look at our supplier record and see that this audit is also linked with a corrective action plan. Once again, this is the same CAPA that is included within that quality management solution. We take a look and open this up. We see that obviously this is a high severity audit. We have some massive issues with our AIM parts causing significant overheating, failure, as we've mentioned. So once again, through the CAPA, we can take a look at that document that we had attached to our audit finding, do a bit more review, check out some of our fun named parts here, and go and dive deeper into this corrective action plan and see how progressed it is, what steps have been taken, or if any have at all yet. So obviously our audit finding is listed, but as we check our containment analysis, corrective action plans, or corrective actions, nothing has really been done yet. So this is really sort of ruling out AIM as a supplier for this part. So there's a few other ways through the supplier management module to kind of compare and contrast suppliers, not just through going through the supplier record itself. So on the supplier record, we have a few reports that are attached that are essentially vendor scorecards or supplier scorecards. So we open up the individual supplier scorecard here for AIM. We can kind of see how AIM has progressed over time, see how they're scoring based off our metrics, and make a decision based off that as well. So let me set my date range here. And we can go ahead and take a look at how AIM has progressed over time. So our three metrics that we at our bike company have decided to rate our suppliers on are support quality, or quality of customer support, the quality of their parts, and also their on-time delivery. So based on their metrics, we see that consistently their customer support at AIM has been fantastic. When we have issues with their components, we're able to go to them and they can communicate things back to us relatively quickly. When we need components from AIM, their on-time delivery is outstanding. It's not perfect, but usually whenever they miss a shipment, their customer support can also help us out with that. So they get an 8 on that scale. But as we take a look at their quality score, we see starting at a 2 is already a relatively low number on a scale from 1 to 10. But after all of these part failures, they're continuing to move in the wrong direction with their quality. We can see that we might want to start moving away from AIM as a supplier, even if them as a company have been very friendly and helpful to us and pretty reliable with delivering parts. Now, if we go ahead and take a look at Stark Industries and their individual supplier scorecard, once again, set our date range, we can see that the overall trend on this graph is a lot more positive than the other. So when it comes to their quality score, their parts are always 10 out of 10. They have been very consistent, very little issues with their components on our designs, and truly a very reliable supplier. But we see that they've also, in the past, have been lacking when it comes to their on-time delivery and their customer support. And these are two things that they've been working on over the past, I guess, month or so in terms of this time scale. We can see that they're consistently improving over time. So in terms of going to those, when it comes to supplier scorecards, there are individual metrics that we can measure, like individual scorecards for AIM and Stark. But when we go to our overall report for all of our vendors, we can see and compare our suppliers all within the same report. So our report takes in a few different properties. So first being the ranking name. So we have our 3 categories here. And ideally, with the scenario we have going on, we're going to want to rank everyone based off our quality score. And as we look at our supplier capabilities, we can see that AIM has provided us hardware, as has Stark Industries. So let's go ahead and rank all of our hardware suppliers by their quality scores. So what this report generates is a table that shows all the scores. You can go ahead and rank through there. And then it also gives you a nice bar graph to show all of your suppliers at once and kind of compare in a visual metric. So we see when it comes to quality, Stark is the cream of the crop. We also have a few other suppliers that are pretty strong at this as well, such as Wayne Enterprises, McMaster-Carr, and Acme is also a relatively reliable supplier. But as we scroll down, we see that our suppliers get less and less reliable. So we can also obviously do a report on other metrics as well, so on-time delivery, and kind of get a more stratified view of our suppliers. So at this point, I kind of want to switch gears here. We've been doing a lot with the part, kind of making part decisions based off our suppliers. But now let's kind of go through the process of introducing a new supplier into our system here. So in order to do that, let's first clean up our tabs here and go ahead and create a new supplier. So this is relatively simple at this point. So I'm going to breeze through it. So obviously import our metadata that we need, contact names, that's me, and go ahead and save our supplier here. So when a new supplier is introduced into the system, it'll go ahead and kick off a workflow. Obviously, depending on your business needs, you might need a more complex workflow out of the box. And for this demonstration, we have a relatively simple one just to show how you can work through the process. So the first state that you'll get on your life cycle of a supplier is awaiting approval. And when we go to our in-basket, we see we have a new workflow task that's going to be assigned to our procurement manager. In this case, I just assigned our innovator admin to that role, so I can, just for ease of demonstration, but obviously a pretty adaptable role there. So the first task here is to begin our supplier review. And before I do that, I'd like to fill out a few things here as well. So when it comes to Razorleaf Supply Co., we'll say we're a hardware company. We are ITAR compliant, and really go from there. Basket. So at this point, we can go ahead. We've done our review, and we can go and vote through. So at this point, we can either deny or review our supplier here. Let's go and vote through to review. Let's complete our task. And at this point, we now have a few different options here. So we can certify our supplier, we can choose to uncertify this supplier, or we can just overall deny the supplier from entering our record. Obviously, as a Razorleaf employee, we'd love to certify us and move forward. We can now see that our supplier is fully certified. All right, so at this point, there's a few other things I want to touch on before we move on to any questions, and that will be other ways to kind of sort and view your suppliers as we go through. So within our, clean this up as well, within our Razorleaf Manufacturing Suite tab, we see our supplier management tools here. So if we were to go to the capabilities tab here and right click on one of our capabilities, for example, hardware, within that capability, you're able to add a short description. But another cool thing here is this tree grid view that is built into our solution. This allows you to, once again, see all of your related suppliers to the hardware capability and kind of track who within this is a certified supplier, uncertified, or currently under audit. And this will also work the same with our supplier qualifications. So you can find all of the suppliers that meet a certain qualification if that is on their supplier item record, sorry. All right, with that, I guess we can feel free to open up the panel to questions. Once again, our first time running LinkedIn Live, I'm assuming these are coming through the comment section.
Thanks, Milan. Yeah, if anyone has any comments or questions, just put them in the comment panel. We'd love to take them. I'm not seeing anything come through. Oh, got one here. Milan, can you see those or?
Yeah, I'm kind of pulling them up on the side of my phone.
Okay, we got a couple of questions coming in here.
Yep. Yeah, so first question I see from Angela. So her question was, one latest supplier related task we had to solve was handling conflict minerals, CMRT templates. We aren't the biggest company and we don't use Aras CE, so we gather the CMRT Excel files manually, import the data in Aras. That's a very custom solution. I wonder if Aras or Razorleaf have some general plans regarding conflict minerals. So at the moment, that's not currently on our supplier, I guess our product roadmap for supplier management. But granted, the product is really adaptable. I mean, we love taking feedback from demonstrations like this or people who have implemented it and kind of finding new ways to improve the product, add new functionality, things of that nature. So if that's something that's interesting to you guys or maybe something you'd like to see added to the solution, feel free to reach out to us and we could have a conversation and see how that fits into our roadmap. Let's see.
We got a couple of questions. Is this a separate module to install?
Yeah, so similarly to any of the Aras modules, they're essentially just package imports. So in order to add supplier management module to your Aras environment, it is a relatively simple import, making use of the Aras packaging import tool. There's a few elements you'll need to add to the Aras code tree as well, but those are things that we would assist with when it comes to setting up the supplier module. And then I saw another question about what version is this available in. Currently, I'm running this in 12 SP18, but we're always actively trying to update our products to work in the more up-to-date versions. So really, if we have a need to get into release 28 that's upcoming, it's relatively simple to port it into the new ones.
And we have a question about, do you need to have a subscription to access this? And I think this is a different subscription in addition to Aras, correct?
Yeah, so the supplier management module is sold through Razorleaf. It'll be its own separate subscription. So you can buy a subscription to the entire manufacturing suite or to individual components. And if you're interested, feel free to reach out for pricing.
And is everything you ship out of the box?
Yeah, so this is part of the out-of-the-box solution for the supplier management module.
Okay, and another question, what advantage would there be to this type of information out of an ERP?
Well, I guess the key advantage of pulling this information out of ERP is really to have Aras PLM as your central source of information. If you're using PLM as your primary source of, or your single source of truth really in your environment, it kind of limits the amount of times you have to switch between different platforms to access information. I mean, it limits clicks. I don't have to close out of my Aras instance to go into my ERP instance and find that information, when I can go through my Aras part record and have a few clicks through relationship tabs to find that information that's needed.
And would we be able to show how the supplier is populated in the supplier module?
Oh yeah, of course. Sorry about that. I kind of breezed past that. So let's go to one of our suppliers here. So I think I've touched on almost every relationship here except for the supplier statistics. So supplier statistics are, these metrics are captured through this relationship tab here with a ranking date and value. So each of these ranking types are saved as an item within Aras, configured as such. So if you wanted to add a new ranking type, it's as simple as creating a new item here, your ranking name, the low and high ranges, and the method of the ranking. So if you wanted an average, overall, a pass fail, things of that nature. So all those ranking types are relatively simply configured and then pulled into that report as needed.
Okay, great. And one more question from Angela. How are suppliers connected to the manufacturer and or vendor item type?
Yeah, so suppliers are connected to the manufacturer item type through the parts that are connected to the supplier. That was a maybe poor way of wording that. For every single manufactured part, you're able to add a supplier to that record. So for this bicycle chain manufacturer part here, it's supplied by Stark Industries, but manufactured by 𝙬𝙀𝙊𝙍𝙬.
I think that covers most of the questions. Anybody else? Okay, well, we'll close out at this point. Thank everyone for your time today, participating in our presentation. Thank you, Milan, for doing a great job of the demo. And we'll be recording on YouTube. So if you want to